Today I'm going to show you how to make a lock miter joint. It looks something like this. Beautiful, beautiful joint and very, very strong. Hey you guys, I'm so excited. Today I'm going to show you how to make a lock miter joint. It looks something like this. It is a perfect miter. It keeps the wood at 90 degrees and is made from two pieces like this. Without any further ado, let's get right into it and see how I made this. Now to make this joint, I'll be using the router table and I'll be using a router bit, and this is called a lock miter bit. It looks something like this. This one is from white side. I really like this one. Many companies make them. I have some more in here. This one are from Infinity Tools. This is the one I'm using today. This one is brand new, but I have another one into the router table. And Infinity also makes an even bigger one, and I'm gonna tell you which one you should buy and why. This is another giant one if you're working with material of 1 inch or even over 1 inch. Rockler has one, and I really like that one. I have it somewhere. I've used it all the time, and I can't find it. I don't know where I put it. So many companies have these lock miter bits, and you have to be careful when you buy them, because as you saw, some of these guys are giant, and you might not need a really big one. You might need a smaller one. The one that I'm using today, they call it the baby lock miter. And that is because it's a smaller one, so it accommodates material beginning with 3/8 of an inch. So you can use this one from 3/8 of an inch all the way to 3/4 inch. Now for today's box that I'm making, I'm using 3/8 inch material, and that is because it's a custom order. A client asked for something that is not as chunky as a 1/2 inch one, as something thinner. So because I'm already set up with my router bit, I'm not making just one, I'm making 5 boxes. So 3/8 of an inch, I milled my material at 10 millimeters. 3/8 of an inch is 9.5 millimeters, so I went to 10 because it's easier to remember, and it's just a 1/2 millimeter over the 3/8. This router bit will not work with anything less than 3/8 of an inch, so 10 millimeter it is for me. Now, one of my favorite joints to make, it's miter joints, and that's because you have that continuous grain. It just looks nice and clean. I even like it better than dovetail joint. I just think it looks nicer and cleaner. But when you work with thinner material, like 3/8 material, you do not have a lot of glue surface, and it becomes a very weak joint. So when I work with thinner materials, I like to do the lock miter. So as you can see, this guy interlocks like this, and it gives us a really pretty miter. I'm gonna show you on the 2 different colors just so you can see it better. So these are not glued together. Once I put the glue in there and squeeze, clamp it and stuff, it's gonna look a lot cleaner. And you can see it gave us a very nice, clean miter. And this locking miters, it pretty much gives you a perfect 90-degree corner, and it makes it easy to clamp because it won't slip and slide. It's interlocked in there, and it keeps it square, so it makes it a lot easier when assembling boxes and so on. I've purchased a whole bunch of these router bits, and my 2 favorites is the one from Infinity that I'm using today, because like I said, it works from 3/8 material thickness to a 3/4 material, and then the one from Rockler, I'll put links to all of this in the description below. The one from Rockler, the same thing, it starts at 3/8. Most of other router bits, they start at 1/2 inch or 5/8, so you would not be able to use thinner material. Most of these companies that make these router bits also sell setup blocks like this. I found these guys to be pretty much a waste of money. They only work if you are working with 3/4 inch material. So as you can see, when you put your router bit into the router table, then you'll use one of these setup blocks to figure out exactly the height of the bit and the distance of the fence. I find these guys to be a waste of money. Then Infinity, they sell this kind of jigs as well. They sell one for their big router bit and one for their mini. And these guys, the way they work, they have some magnets on the back, and they get, let's see, how do I do it? So you stick them like that onto the router bit. It has that little lip over there. It goes under this part. And then this will give you the distance of the fence and the height of the bit. It helps you set it up. You have to mark exactly the halfway of your material, and then there's lots of videos online showing you how to do this, so I'm not going to go into this detail, but I do have these setup blocks, and they are okay, but they're not great either. I bought them and I never really used them. Now, if the setup blocks are no good and those little red infinity jigs are no good, then how do you set up your router bit? I found the easiest way to set it up is with this. I used this book. I bought this book on Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description below. It has lots of good tips, and it has the lock miter joint in here, and it tells you exactly how to set up your bit. And I found this to be very useful. I keep this book in my shop, and this is what I use to set up my router bit. Now, once you install your router bit into your router table, you might want to attach a sacrificial fence. You'll push your fence back, put a piece of plywood here, stick it with double sticky tape or with clamps, and then bring it forward, run it into the bit, and that will give you a zero clearance fence. And then I'm going to show you how you can run tiny pieces like this, because you see the bit is so large. If you're trying to move them like this, you will end up in this gap and bad things will happen. So I'm going to show you how to run these pieces through. So once you set up your router bit, you'll run a piece of material like this to the bit, and then you'll cut off a portion of the routed piece. Just like I did here, as you can see, this piece was together like this. I ran it through the router bit, I got this profile, and then I cut a piece off, and you want to match it like this. And you see it gets flush in here, We have a nice joint there. So that means my router bit is set perfectly. Once you have it set perfectly, in order to create the joint, you have to run a piece this way, and then the matching piece goes up like this. So that's how you create the two profiles that will match together. Now, like I said, it would be a problem when you have a small piece, like for boxes, I make boxes, and the pieces are too narrow to go through this hole. The router bit is too big. So this is how I do that. For the pieces that are getting on flat on the table, that gets run through the router bit like this, I'll use this jig. This is a woodpecker's jig. I'm not sponsored. I do not have any kind of affiliates with them. I bought this on Amazon with my own money. And the way you want to run this to your router bit, as you can see, this jig, I really like it because it has this plexiglass that just runs on your router table fence. So it keeps everything very nice and safe. And then it has these clamps. It has a clamp over here. So I'll put my material against the fence. I don't know if you can see from there, but I'll put it against the fence. Maybe I'll move it on this other side. So I'll push my material here against the fence, and I'll put another block behind it just to prevent tear out. I'll close this, jam it in there, so it's like holds it tight, turn this knob to lock it, and then you can further lock it with this knob on the side here. So if you turn that towards you, it will tighten it even more. Make sure those pieces are now moving and are tight and safe in there. And then you can run them through your router bit just like this. And that's how I created those profiles on the end. Now for the pieces that are ran on the table this way, another way to do it if you do not want to purchase a jig for it is to double-sided tape with some really strong double-sided tape, another piece of material, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and you double-sided tape like this. And make sure they are both flush, put it against the fence, and then you can run it like this through the bit, and this long board is going to make contact with the fence and keep it straight and safe while this one runs through it, but make sure it is really attached. It does kind of scare me to do it this way, especially narrow pieces like this. If I'm making a tissue box cover and I have a wider piece, I know I can have enough double-sided tape to safely attach it to a larger board like this, and then I can send it through the router bit with absolutely zero problem. So that's another way you can do it. Now, when it comes to the mating piece that has to be ran up like this on the router, I had to make another jig. I had this jig from Infinities, and this one, it's meant to, you clamp your piece here, and it's meant to run your piece through your router for those kind of cuts. The problem is this piece is so narrow that if I would do this, my jig would run into the router bit. So I couldn't use this jig. Now, for the piece that gets ran like this, I had to make this jig, and it's a very, very simple jig. I just took a plank of 3/4 inch plywood, about this big. Let me take a tape measure. So my piece of plywood is about, it's just a scrap I found in my trash. It's about 17 3/8 long, and it's about 6.5, almost 6.5 wide. And then to that, I glued another piece of material, and this one I milled to exactly 10 millimeter because I'll be working with 10 millimeter material. So 10 millimeter, like I said, glue it to the piece of plywood, make sure it's flush on the side. And the way this works, you see my piece is shorter than the piece of plywood, and this will allow me to place my piece of wood like this, and then I can use a clamp, and I can clamp it this way, just like that. It's flush at the bottom, and this is very secure in there. And now I can run it like this against the router table fence. And this piece, it's going to also be like a backer, so you don't get chip out, but also will, just because it's so long, it's going to ride on the fence and make this for a very safe cut. I suggest you use one of these face clamps when you clamp your board. Use one of these face clamps. They are super, super good for this kind of situation. Now I find that if I try to use one of these clamps to clamp my material in place, sometimes when I tighten it, it tends to lift up a little bit the bottom of my piece. Also, if my piece is short, the clamp might interfere with the tray and the knob onto my router table fence. Now the piece that you will run through the router bit down flat like this is going to have a profile something like this. And then the piece that you are running up like this, it's going to have a different profile. It's going to be something like this. And then that's how they match to make a perfect joint. Now, when you purchase your router bit, make sure you read the description. Don't get fooled. Other companies like Infinity makes these ones. These are lock miter bits, but this one is a 22.5 degree miter bit. That means it's meant to work for 8-sided boxes. So this will now make a perfect 90-degree corner. You will make a 45-degree corner, and you'll use 2 of them, one for the one side and one for the mating side. So make sure you're not buying the wrong bits. You get the ones that is just one bit and makes a 90-degree corner. Now I'm going to give you a quick tip for setting up your bit next time a lot faster. So instead of taking you an hour to set it up, the next time it's only going to take you about 2 to 5 minutes. And that is, once you set up your bit perfectly for your thickness of the material, run your piece on the table like this, run it through the bit, and then you will get something like this. Write down the thickness of your material so you know for the future, and now this one is becoming your setup block. So next time I need to set up this router bit to cut 10 millimeter material, I am going to, let me lower it down a little bit so you can see. Now to use this setup block, super easy next time. Make sure your router is unplugged, and then move the cutter of your router bit, move it facing you. And now this setup block, as you can see, it helps me determine where should my fence be and how high and how low should my bit be. I have to move it so if it's perfectly into my setup block, just like this. So when I get this kind of fit, then I know I have the perfect fit for my 10 millimeter material. So my own setup block, need to make this on every thickness that you're normally working with. So as you can see, it's not hard to make this kind of joint. It will take you a little bit of time to set it up the first time, but then once you have that setup block for the material, it should make it really easy for the next time and the next time and so on. I hope this was useful to you and you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Skylar Ewing and I'll see you in my next video.